Frank. What's the weirdest thing you've ever saw in here?
Let me ask you a question, kid. Did you see that movie, Night of the Living Dead?
Hey, we gonna party tonight or what?
Yeah, we are gonna party.
Well, where are we gonna party?
I don't know, somewhere.
Hey, we could go to the park.
Oh, no, we can't. The cops said they'd shoot us if we go back to the park. Yeah, and I ain't in no mood to go tonight.
I like that.
Greetings, ghouls, and welcome to minute 16 of Do You Want to Party, the Movies by Minute podcast of the 1985 groundbreaking horror classic, The Return of the Living Dead. I'm your host, Troy, and joining us this week is a returning guest host from Minute 7, movie lover and fellow cosplayer,
Mitchell. Thank you for having me, Troy. I appreciate it. I had a great time last time, and you're asking me back, so hopefully it was well received.
Yeah, no, to tell you the truth, I was going to make it part of the outro and all that sort of thing, but within the past 2 weeks, the numbers have actually noticeably grown. They're not huge numbers, but from 2 weeks prior to my last 2 episodes going out, they've gone up a lot higher than I expected.
Oh,
So
awesome. Congrats. That's good to hear.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. I don't have the numbers for every single platform because I'm still trying to figure out, how do I see the platform and all that sort of thing. But working off of just like Spotify alone, the numbers have gone from like 5 regular people to 71.
Nice.
So, which was
Awesome.
a surprise thing to look today going like, wait, are those numbers right? So yeah, so
Ooh,
it's catching on, which is
people
fantastic because there's people listening. Oh my God. So we're just gonna go right into this. Minute 16, which starts with music dispersing birds and ends up with Frank on a chain. So for the previous minute, we ended up with, okay, we're gonna pause here for a second. What do you
Frank on a chain?
Yeah, Frank.
Oh, you mean holding on to the chain?
Yeah, he's holding on to Frank on a chain. Yes.
You said Frank on a chain. I'm like, he doesn't get impaled on anything. What's going on?
No, exactly. It's just the wording. It's just the wording to make it seem a little, Okay, we'll continue.
I didn't do my homework. I'm sorry.
All right, so we'll put that at the end of the episode. That should be fun. Okay, the previous minute ended with the punks, again, quotations, punks, entering and starting to wander through the entrance of the cemetery. This minute, basically, at the very first moment, we see a close-up of the ghetto box, the boom box, and Chuck turns it on, and music starts playing. So it's
I'm always a huge fan of diegetic audio.
Yes.
Music within the world, and we're joined by it. Like, of course, like the Guardians films is what's kind of popularized it more recently. James Gunn's always done that, but you also can think of like Reservoir Dogs with Mr. Blonde stepping outside of the room after torturing. The music cuts off,
and when he comes back,
it's such a great way to pull your audience into it and actually feel with the characters.
Yes, and I love the fact that sometimes you're trying to figure out as the audience, wait, is this what the characters are hearing, or is it just for the audience? And sometimes it's kind of hard. I mean, in a movie like this, it's obviously you switch on a ghetto blaster and you have music playing that everyone's grooving along to and all that sort of thing. So the song playing is Eyes Without a Face by the Flesh Eaters, and not the Billy Idol version. The Flesh Eaters themselves is a punk band that was an American punk band, which is kind of interesting to see that it's an American punk band in this, that formed in Los Angeles, California in 1977. And they're the most prominent of the bands which have showcased a composition and singing of their founder, punk poet Chris Disjarnes, best known as Chris D. So we'll go Chris D. Sorry, not Christy, Chris D. While he is the group's only continual member, the Flesh Eaters lineup has drawn from all sorts of other famous bands in the LA punk scene, such as The Plugs, X, The Blaster, and Los Lobos. The band has been together since 1977, but they've had a couple of shutdowns and restarts. So they first were together from 1977 to 1983, which basically covers their tail end is where this song gets used, Eyes Without a Face gets used for this movie. Then they got back together from 1990 to 1993, and again parted ways again. And as of 1999 to the present day, they are still rocking at it. And if I were to list the whole entire list of past members, we're talking like 18, 19 different performers that have over the years been with or without. Just the only thing is, it's just been Chris D is, like I said, the only continual person to be part of the actual band itself. As the music starts playing, we get a great shot of the setting sun in the nice orange, well, I would say California sky, but we know it's not supposed to be California. It's it's Louisville. And we got some birds flying away, right, that are being, startled by the music, as what we're implying with that. And then we have an exterior shot of UNITA Medical, and we can hear just faintly in the background, we could still hear the music playing. So obviously, yep, there's your whole entire diegetic, because obviously the cemetery is right next to the building itself. We cut to the exterior where Frank and Freddie are laying on the floor, and they cough themselves back into consciousness. They are like, they don't know how long we've been out for. We figure it's probably a little bit, but they do.
With the setting sun, it's supposed to kind of insinuate it might be a few hours or so.
Yeah.
Just because I believe it was like sunny or so, or like the end of the workday, maybe.
Yep.
So if it was summertime, it might be like, 5 or 6 maybe when they were going to shut it down.
Yeah.
Now we're getting closer to midnight.
Yeah. Well, to catch everybody up at this point, Bert has left at 5 o'clock. And Frank had told his wife when she called that he was only going to be there for another hour. So we know that the movie starts at 5 o'clock. 6 o'clock was when he was going to leave, but we found out from a couple of minutes ago that Freddie was going to stay there till 10 o'clock. Now, just as it cuts from the Colonel's house to the punks driving along, the time card is 7 p.m. Pacific time. No, sorry, Eastern time. No, yes, Eastern time. And this is a few minutes after that, because we drive through, they pull right up to the actual, there might be some sort of a time change between that and all, because we cut from a musical sequence and the action car, and then we cut to the next shot and there's no music whatsoever. So we get a little of a time jump, and this is all after Frank and Freddie have been out for at least an hour and a half, depending on the time between them deciding to go into the basement and crack open the canister. So there you go. You're all caught up for whoever hasn't watched this movie, which I highly doubt. If you're this far into it, you've more than likely seen the movie at least once or twice. Like I said, they cough themselves back into consciousness. Frank then uses Freddie to stand up. So Freddie's on all fours, and then Frank climbs on top of Freddie to straighten himself up. But once he actually is standing, he grabs onto the back of Freddie's shirt and grab his suspenders and helps him stand up, right? They both stumble around for a bit, and then Freddie mentions that he's not feeling very good, and mention how bad the smell is right now. So again, we've seen what it is that was spraying around and all that. They were coughing up a storm and all that. We do know that from what they actually used to make that yellow smoke is a sulfur smoke. So it's the place really did stink up, and apparently it took like hours of the fans running to get the smell out of there. So whether or not the smell is still there, but they can imagine it, because that's what got blown in their faces. What's that sulfur smell?
I did not realize that's what they use.
Yeah, that is it. Yeah.
That would definitely put you in your character's mindset for the scene.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, see, the thing is, at the time, obviously, in the mid 80s, I'm pretty sure they'd be able to come up with something a little different now. But Dan O'Bannon wanted that particular yellow smoke. He wanted that particular looking smoke, and the only thing they could come up with that would be that smoke was a sulfur-based smoke that just, yeah. So they were talking about how it took hours to air the place out, and they basically couldn't shoot for very long in the scene because just even the crew was not handling it very well. So
Imagine they're filming in the base in like a basement or underground area or like a sealed area with not the greatest
Well,
ventilation.
actually, this is this is after I found out after watching a little bit more that this is actually a built set.
Oh,
So the actual,
okay.
yeah, so the actual sets that we see in the warehouse are built,
Interiors.
yeah, are built inside the warehouse. So they're all a
Ah,
set. And
okay.
so yeah, so the freezer is a separate set. The office is a different set, and the basement is a different set. So the stairs in the main level that lead to this to the basement just is a dead end. And then the stairs, when you go up the stairs to get to the top of the basement steps, leads to like like the ceiling of the room, and it doesn't lead to anywhere. So anyway, so after that, he mentions how he's not feeling so good. Then they examine the now empty canister with the shattered porthole window. Now the camera pans in, and we can see there's just a little bit of dark liquid
Goop.
sitting in the bottom. Yeah, whatever the goop is and all that. Freddy then questions what happened to the body. Frank's only response is that it must have melted once it hit the air. Okay, so Freddy then starts waving his hand in front of his face. He tells Frank to close it, and Frank then drops the hinged lid down with a clang. Frank then turns around, stumbles away, coughing, and he grabs onto Chekhov's chain for support. And when he puts his full weight on it, the chain actually slides along the track that is attached to the ceiling. Once it comes to the
Oh.
final end of the track, it stops his forward momentum, and Freddy stumbles up behind him and behind Frank and pats him on the back. And that brings us to the end of what happens in this particular minute.
I love just the visual not simile, but similarity between the opening title sequence with the corpse on the meat hook, and
Mm-hmm.
now we have someone recently exposed to it on a very
On
similar meat hook and chain, kind
that's a good
of
point. Yeah.
foreshadowing the
Yeah.
not his character
No,
arc,
no, no. Yeah,
but
for sure. Yeah.
what's about to come.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the thing. This movie completely does a perfect job of setup
Hmm.
and reveal like throughout the whole entire movie. And of course, obviously, you're not really noticing it upon first watch,
No.
but again, watching it at this rate, minute by minute, you recognize a lot of it. But watching it several times, you realize, oh
Yep.
wait, that's this and that's that and that's yeah. So yeah. But the nice thing is, it's kind of cool because you get to examine a little more of the junk that's strewn about the basement floor, or the cellar floor, I believe is they refer to it. And like you can see that there's like some actual like name brand stuff sitting around. There's like an empty box of an Igloo ice chest and all that sort of thing. Not the ice chest itself, the box that the ice chest came in and whatnot. You can still see all like the posters and whatnot and all that. And you now clearly can see that earlier we had I had described that there was only three canisters, but we now can see that there are six canisters and all that. I had made the mistake of just going with my visual of what I had
Hmm.
seen, and of course the lighting and whatnot.
Wider
You don't,
shot.
yeah. Once you get, yes, exactly, different angles and all that, you're there. Oh wait, there are six. So yes, my earlier statements of saying they only made three because they can only afford to make three was just a hypothesis, because I didn't see anything else that said there were
Mhm.
six until a few minutes later, and it's like, oh, how silly of me to not have remembered that there were actually six. I mean, who's going to remember that detail? Which, I mean, you really should, but I didn't.
I when you brought up that this was actually a built set, it
Hmm.
really plays into like the philosophy of filmmaking where you have to plan everything, you have to place
Hmm.
everything,
Yeah.
everything has to have that intention. And well, of course, there's always those exceptions of we just need stuff boxes.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the objects and these specific props that make appearance later on and shows the consequences of it, it kind of makes you appreciate the film more and more.
Yeah.
And not doesn't have to be just this one, but as a general rule
Yeah, for
for
sure, for
it.
sure. You want to know what also they did? To
Ooh.
save money, they actually put their production offices in the building as well.
That makes
So
sense. That
so
works.
basically, yeah, so all of the area that they needed to like rewrite scripts or work on production stuff and all that was all in the same building, so they can walk from your production office straight into like the sets and redo something or shoot something, or so
It used to be efficient.
yeah, exactly. Well, again, you're dealing with a very visual director, because I mean, it just, again, you keep going back to Dan O'Bannon's history up to this point and all that. And from a man who wrote the script for Alien, which is so descriptive in the way that Ridley Scott was able to bring his work to life, it's nice to see that the man in charge of writing the script was also the director, and that sort of feel can be brought into it. He just brought along the right people. And again, they did a lot of, hey, we got a small budget, but we got to make it look like a big budget. And they've successfully pulled it off. It's the thing that I'm going to constantly keep saying every single time, something that looks really expensive that probably wasn't. But yeah, so it's very entertaining to break those particular things down. So
especially like the practical effects always have that good feeling to it.
Oh yes,
and
for sure.
It just has the more visceral or more intimate, and you feel the love of it.
Yeah, and you're looking at 1983, 1984. You're not having like a lot of digital effects. You don't have a lot of you don't have a lot of digital cameras. There's not, you're still shooting sometimes film. This is probably maybe video, but it's definitely not digital. But it's just amazing how, and again, like when we get later into the movie, there's no computer generated characters. Everything is physically right then and there. Sometimes it doesn't always work, but for the most part, it's fantastic. And like, it's just such a treat to see something that still looks fresh and new in today's modern day, because it is that it's practical and it's more visceral and realistic than any of the things that you could see nowadays for the $4 million budget too. If you had a movie nowadays with $4 million,
that's an indie film. That's like a romantic comedy is $4 million.
Exactly.
Now.
Yeah. You want a zombie apocalypse movie for $4 million? Oh, it's going to be a trashy looking movie.
Yeah.
Over on the commentary track, which again is with director and writer Dan O'Bannon and production designer William Stout, Dan O'Bannon begins this minute by continuously talking about how they had to alter the area of the olive grove, because not only did they have to hang Spanish moss off of the olive vines to make it look more southern, but the fact that, and what he starts in this part of the commentary mentioning, that they actually had no grass in this area and they actually had to bring in and plant grass and water to hopefully that it would take root. Once the movie then turns to the scene where Frank and Fred are starting to stir on the floor of the basement, Dan then says, quote, "Nice slimy floor." He then brings back the fact that the sulfur smoke that they had used smelt so awful, and he then goes on to say that he thought it was worth mentioning in the commentary track, because of the characters commenting on the supposedly vile odor of this toxic sludge, and the fact that it actually did really smell vile.
All right, so we're going to go to, according to the script, which is a story and screenplay by Dan O'Bannon. This is the revision from October 1983, which is based on the story and screenplay by John Russo, Rudy Rickey, and Russell Steiner. So the script states that Meat, now, in the script, the names are slightly different. So Meat is actually Spider. So Miguel Nunez at this time, turns on the portable tape deck, and a real loud new wave rock and roll is playing out of it. Now, obviously, we now know in the actual movie that it's actually Chuck that is carrying the ghetto blaster, not Spider. So it echoes through out over the cemetery, bouncing from over the gravestones. Dee Dee, who in the script is actually trashed later on, starts laughing and running around the headstones. So that particular sequence with trash is actually the end of the previous minute that just in the script is just a little out of whack. That's the only reason why, because last minute, I didn't include her running around the cemetery because it reads after this point. So anyways, besides that, we then go to the interior, the basement, the medical supply house at night, which is the direction for the placement. In the script, after Freddy calls out to Frank, Frank picks himself up off the cold concrete, staggers over to the corner, and throws up, which obviously doesn't happen in the final movie. Frank then wakes up, groans, and Frank gets up and vomits too. Now, again, neither of this happens. It's just a little extra thing and all that. The rest plays out like it does in the movie.
Probably good that they didn't do the vomit scene. One, for now you have to do that effect, but also that kind of suggests expelling the poison, because generally whenever you ingest, not inhale, you would be trying to remove the poison that way.
Yeah.
Classic like spy ideas. So maybe that's a reason why they didn't go that route. I think it's probably more we don't want to have a scene of them vomiting, and that's just kind of gross for it. But
well, a spoiler alert for the next minute. After hanging off the chain, Frank coughs one more time and then runs around to underneath the steps where he throws up with his back to the camera in the dark. And then you hear the voiceover of them. But in this particular, obviously, where they
the shuffle around.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That makes more sense.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you also save on an effect by not showing them puking. Like if you if you can throw in a Foley effect, you're perfectly fine, right? And the other thing is, again, I'm gonna go back to both Tom and James just being such professional actors that they don't sound like they're hamming up the coughing. They don't look like they're like overplaying the movements and all that. They look like they've gone through the wash. They look like they're like completely
like they've inhaled sulfur and now
exactly
like,
exactly still... and now they're not like they yes exactly. I'm pretty sure they didn't shoot them with sulfur and then shoot this scene. They probably but still the two actors, again, one practically new, one old hat, they're working at the same level, and it's just a great testament to both their acting skills. And I will not stop bestowing the strengths of these two actors, because again, not only do they work well together, but they convincingly pull off a lot of especially in the upcoming few minutes. Like when they start really getting into, you know, what happens, it's very you can practically feel how they feel, because they bring such emotion to their characters that
they come off of a good dynamic of the boss employee kind of thing, the manager, and the pseudo like father kind of like figure kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
I think back to like the him trying to rile the boss trying to rile up his younger guy and telling the story of how the chemicals were obtained, and it does remind me of what my grandfather or father would do at the kitchen table, these long elaborate stories just to have a laugh.
Yeah, James Karen does a fantastic job of pulling in Tom Matthews, and Tom Matthews does a fantastic job of
the trusting younger.
Yeah, exactly. The fool. Well, playing a little bit of the fool. I mean, he does.
Yeah.
I mean,
the naivety of it.
Yeah, the naivety. That's a better way to put it. Yeah. So one of the other things that I have available to me is a actual working print of the final film. Now, sorry, it's not of the film. Obviously, the working print is not the final film. But as we compare what is in the working print to what we have here, well, this is minute 16, which is minute 15 and 60 seconds up to 16, which makes our 16th minute. The work print is already up to minute 17, and this whole entire minute takes place in a minute and 18 seconds, where the differences are at the very beginning, we don't see Chuck turning on the ghetto blaster. Now, the work print doesn't have any extra music in the background. There's no any music and all that sort of thing in any of the tracks. We do see Chuck approaching a giant cement cannon. It's covered in branches and leaves, and he looks to be about to clean out the clogged cannon when Spider jumps into frame and is standing on the other side of the cannon facing towards him. The two of them seem to have some sort of conversation between the two of them, but it cannot be heard over whatever it is. It's obviously not picked up by the boom operator. He obviously says something to each other, and then they run off to catch up with the others that are walking further into the cemetery. And as they walk further into the cemetery, the camera, while still pointed at them, loses them in the amount of like tree coverage and all that is in the underbush and all that. Then it cuts to the red sky and whatnot. But in the warehouse basement, Freddy coughs a little bit more and calls Frank's name twice before Frank finally stirs, which is just an extra, obviously, cut down for a little bit of timing and all that sort of thing. And when the rest of it plays out as they stand up and look into the actual canister, what is actually missing is the shot of the camera looking into the canister, which is obviously comes a later insert shot, because obviously in that particular shot you don't see anyone in that. It's just an actual camera shot into it, so that's why you don't really need that particular you can do that insert shot and put it anywhere, shoot it at any time, and then pop it into the movie later. But other than that, the rest of it plays out the same as usual up, and that's where the thing is. So far, we're about a minute and a bit ahead of the final film with the rough cut. All right. So once again, thank you, Mitch. And if anyone is enjoying the show and all that, please, if you have anything to say about what you just listened to, if we missed anything that should have been brought up or anything like that, give us a shout at our email, which is planetgeekpod@gmail.com. We'll continue on the conversation there, or maybe even roll it into a future episode. Again, I want to thank the sudden growing of the audience. Now, it's not huge numbers. It's not giant, the Star Wars Minute guys following, but for what I've been doing so far, I appreciate the people that are hopping aboard now, and it's nice to see the numbers going up. And hey, you're all welcome, and if you can pass this on to other people, that'd be really, really great, as I put up a thumbs up on something that no one's actually going to be watching. So
hey, I saw it. I count.
yes, exactly. You do count, Mitch, but you haven't been listening to the podcast.
No comment. I'm kidding. No. I've been slowly recovering. It's on my.
No, I was only kidding. I was only kidding about that. So, all right. So, thanks again to everyone who listened. Thanks once again, Mitch, for the 7th or 8th time at the outro here for joining me. And I want to thank everyone. And the only thing I have to say now is see you next Wednesday.
You've just been listening to a Planet Geek production of Do You Want to Party? A Movies by Minute podcast of the 1985 The Return of the Living Dead. Please be sure to subscribe, download, comment, share, rate, and review. Be sure to follow us on our social media platforms: Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Tumblr, or Letterboxd. Search for Planet Geek Productions. X, former Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky, search for Planet Geek Pod. Or send us an email to planetgeekpod@gmail.com. Our closing music is provided by Night Chill. See the show notes for more details. Once again, thanks for tuning in, and farewell, fiends.
Punk poet Chris didn't. Oh, I knew I was going to mess this up. I went over a couple of times practicing his name and all that, and I've just actually got to turn off that notification right now. So they both stumble around for a bit, and then Freddie mentions that he's not feeling very good, and mention how bad the smell is right now. So
I always fear the program will switch my audio, and they'll go from my mic to my camera, and my camera mic sucks. It's pretty good for a $50 camera for video.
Okay.
But for audio, it sounds like garbage.
All right.
Yeah, so I'm like, I cannot stand that. Um, I don't know if you picked up earlier when you were doing a description. I was like holding up my finger, my
Yep,
thumbs
yep,
up.
yep.
I was moving off because I heard a train coming in. So I had my camera on my microphone on mute. So I muted it, and I'm like shuffling off to the side to try and close my windows to get rid of like the trains.
Did
So I'm
not
like,
hear a thing.
good.
Yeah.
Because I even also had my blinds removing a bunch, and I'm like, shit, I hope that doesn't pick up on the mic. It's
Oh,
on.
I wasn't able to. Yeah.
Yeah, it was on this side of the microphone, which I have it so it's focused more towards me.
Right,
So
right.
it shouldn't. You never
Right, right.
know.
Okay.
Audio is annoying as fuck. I
All right.